You are now watching the Amazing Mets Pregame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets Pregame Show with myself and CP. We are back and better than ever, guys, ready to talk about our goddamn New York Mets. So let's say what up to Chris and let's get started. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, guys. It's been a long time. I missed a lot of action. I've been paying attention to all things Mets. I paid attention to the deadline, so I didn't miss anything, I promise. I'll give you guys my thoughts and opinions a little bit later. I was trying to push some content out on the channel while I was traveling, but it just simply didn't happen with my setup. But I'm back, better than ever. We are back and better than ever, and hopefully the Mets are ready to win a primetime game, right? In terms of the stakes here against the St. Louis Cardinals. So I appreciate that. Make sure you all are hitting on that thumbs up, subscribing if you haven't subscribed already, whether it's my channel or Rob's channel. Let's get after it. We got a good matchup tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tough series against the Angels, a couple of close games that we lost, and losing a series against the Angels, which, no Mets fans happy about, but it's baseball. You lose some games here. You got to get right back on the wagon and win some ball games. Look, this is a big game for us, right? We're a game apart right now. The Cardinals are right behind us, a game behind us. We got to win. It's just that simple, right? We found ourselves out of the wild card, the three wild card spots right now. We're a game and a half out of the third wild card spot. You just got to keep winning. Look, it's a tough road trip, right? I know there's no excuses, but it's not going to be an easy road trip. Right, this is a month where you're mostly on the road, except for 9 games in the month of August. So they got to they got to show up, right? They've been one of the worst teams in baseball since July 11th or July 14th with runners in scoring position. They're second to last, right in front of the Chicago White Sox, and they've lost 20 in a row. So, they got to be better. And, we can name anybody we want to name. We know Alonso's not doing good. We know Alvarez is not doing good. But you know what? You know who else doesn't realize the Mets are not doing good? Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns. Look at the lineup today, guys. It's changed. We talked about moving guys around. I know some people probably want to see Alonso, 6th or 7th, but moving him out of that cleanup spot, I like. Get the pressure off of him a little bit. Put the veteran Martinez there, who is perfectly fine going hitting anywhere. I don't like Nimmo in the 3 spot, but I get what Mendoza's trying to do. He's trying to set a spark, right? Lindor has been the only one, and McNeil, that have been consistent no matter where you basically, put him, even though Lindor is our leadoff guy now. But, besides McNeil and Lindor, nobody's really haven't been doing anything over these last couple of weeks. So, Chris, look, they're trying something new with the lineup. Mendoza has done this before. It has worked. It's sparked a couple of guys. He is trying to take pressure off of Pete Alonso. And we've talked about this. We got 51, 52 games left. We need Pete Alonso to step up. And I know I sound like a repeat over and over and over again, but it's a fact, right? We know we didn't expect Lindor, Nimmo, Martinez to carry this team the whole year, especially after the last 2 months when they were the ones carrying the team. It's about time that Alvarez and Alonso step up for at least 30 games or so and pick up the guys that are going to be struggling a little bit when they carry this team for the past 2 months.
100% right. I mean, just as simple as this, 6 for 35 against the Los Angeles Angels, you saw will lose you a series. And that's exactly what it did against a lowly team in baseball. They went 6 of 35, even in their lone victory in that series, 5-1, by a very impressive start, by the way, by Paul Blackburn, newly acquired Met, gets his first win as a New York Met in his debut. They went 3 of 18 in that game too. So like you said, if not the worst, definitely top 2 worst teams in the MLB with runners in scoring position ever since July 14th, which was the last game, the 8-5 loss against Colorado before the All-Star break. They cannot hit a lick right now with runners in scoring position. And I always talk about it. The Mets offense really has been elite this season as a total, as a collective unit in 2024. They are top 10 in almost every single category, whether it's just general offense or offense with runners in scoring position. But they've hit a snag here over the last 2.5 weeks, and it's become a trend. And this can't continue to be a trend when you're in the middle of a wild card race. So I 100% agree with you. It doesn't just boil down to Alonso because everybody's a culprit right now with the way things have been going. But Pete Alonso has been taking some pretty horrific at bats, whether it's running with runners in scoring position or not. And he needs to get it changed up. And you see here, according to Mendoza, he moved this lineup around because they're facing Andre Palante and not because of Pete's struggles. But you gotta be realistic. It's probably a mix of both. It is probably a mix of both. But like I said, even given the last 2.5 weeks and what the Mets offense has done or has not done, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from the fact that they are an integral part of this team, and this lineup is one of the reasons why this Mets team is playing competitive baseball here on August 5th, right? A couple months ago, 3 months ago, we were wondering if we're going to get competitive baseball in early August. And now we do. And it's not too late to turn things around. It's 1.5 games back. I know there's a lot of panic that set in. And maybe I'm just panicking a little bit myself. But you know what? Optimism. And this is a pitcher, and Andre Palante, that the first time the Mets are seeing him as a starting pitcher, because he's been a reliever for the last 2 years when the Mets have seen him. I'm very curious to see how they turn things around. It's a wait-and-see game. Either they do or they don't. They've shown us that they've been resilient in the early part of the season before this last 2.5 weeks. Can they get back to baseball, the winning baseball ways? That's what remains to be seen.
Yeah, and they need to. Like we talked about, all right, they finally got over the hump. They got back to where they needed to get to. They got back over the 500 mark. They got into a wild card spot. And I said it. You got to maintain where you came from, right? You were basically buried. You came back to be relevant, and you can't completely be the exact opposite team that got you back into the mix. You just can't fall apart. Look, they're not playing like the Cardinals. I still think the Mets are better than the Cardinals. Like, it's only one game. It's very hard to judge. Anybody can win this game. We all know that. It's baseball. But I don't know. Like, I'm frustrated at the fact that, even though from July 14th until now, when we have one of the worst averages and worst stats when it comes to runners in scoring position, we've still been winning series. If we haven't been winning series, we've been splitting 4-game series. So they haven't been consistently losing series. So we're kind of, I wouldn't say panicking for no reason, but you could see that they're barely getting by in these wins. And one little bad hop here, one little error there can change the entire entire game and entire series. So besides that first 2 games of the Brave series, they really haven't really shown big offensive numbers. And I would say it's alarming only because we've been trying to carry this team has been carried by about 3 or 4 guys. And when those guys start to get a little cold, we know that we're going to get a little cold. They're not going to stay red hot the rest of the year. You expect somebody else to pick those guys up. And that's not happening right now, while these other guys are, I would say, cooled off a little bit. And that's why we keep on talking about Alvarez and Pete Alonso, because look, Pete Alonso is having his worst year as a New York Met in his 5-6 years as a New York Met. This is his worst year. He might not even hit 35 home runs and 100 RBIs. That's a problem on this New York Mets team. And Francisco Alvarez is supposed to be in the middle of this order, hitting 25 bombs. What does he have? 5 home runs? McNeil has home runs in him. We can't continue to wait for, blame Martinez, blame Nimmo, blame Lindor, and then, when they're a little cold and not driving in the runs like they usually have been doing, when the same guys that we've been talking about basically all season haven't been doing the job. And look, I said this in the other shows, Chris. Alvarez, if he's hurt and it's hurting his offense, then they need to put him on the IL. I want to see Alvarez out there, but you know what? He's been not as good behind the plate as a lot of people are talking about. He hasn't been. He can't block balls. He's so worried about framing pitches that balls are getting through in the backstop, let him run, score from third. He's been all over the place. And I know the record is very good with Alvarez in the game, but I think he's hurting this team because it might be the shoulder or it might be the thumb that's still really aching him. If that's the case, and I know he's a tough guy, but why risk him basically being nothing at the plate when you can play Terrence behind the plate, who is a better defensive catcher, who throws out more runners because they run on Alvarez at will, and at least Terrence can actually put the bat on the ball when all Alvarez does is pop up. That's all he does, or strikes out. Like, he has not done anything this year. And, maybe that's too much of a different take. Maybe you don't agree, but I think Alvarez is more of a problem than a lot of Met fans are leading on. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I mean, he's definitely looks a little bit off, right? I think that you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that at least won't admit that 100% on either side of the ball. Now, like I said, I can't make any speculations in terms of if he's actually injured or not. It would make logical sense because he does take a beating back there, and we see time and time again, he just catches balls off of his hand, his wrist, etc. And we just simply don't know that. That goes a long way, especially when you have like 2 or 3 times in a row where you get dinged by a ball or even a bat on your hand. That's going to affect your grip strength. So I don't really know what the issue there is, and I don't know what my level of concern should be, but the offensive production at the very minimum has not been there. And you're right, 2 guys in Pete Alonso and Alvarez, who we thought were really going to be key contributors in the middle of the lineup, just simply haven't been producing. But even given that, like I said, and this is what takes me back to like at least a little bit of optimism that I'm hoping that the Mets can get out of this sort of rut that they're in offensively, is that despite all these bad seasons that we're seeing, right? Alvarez is not really performing recently. Pete Alonso has been like very inconsistent this season, despite everything, right? McNeil had a terrible first half, like beyond terrible. Despite everything, this offense and the numbers that they're actually producing, it gives me a sign of at least hope. And that's really all I have right now, is just hope for them to get out of whatever they've been in the last 2.5 weeks. But it's no denying they've hit a little bit of a hard stretch here, and they've been resilient in the past. How do they get back up off their feet and stay in this race? I mean, we really had multiple opportunities to take this wild card lead from the Braves, and they failed to do so. Games like the last 2 nights against the Angels is what you look back on if you are looking up 2 or 3 games at the end of the season at maybe a 3rd wild card spot or whatever it is. Like, these are the type of games that you don't take advantage of and you don't capitalize on, and it comes back to haunt you. And we talked about these type of games way early on in the season too. Like, there's at least we can handpick 10 or 15 different games, and maybe even just half of those go the Mets' way. And we're talking about a completely different team and a completely different spot in the standings. And it just simply hasn't been that way. So the missed opportunities definitely kill you as a team. It kills this fan base because it's like, when are they going to snap out of it? And you know what? Nobody can do anything but themselves. Mendoza can't do anything. It's going to be Pete Alonso. Mendoza can't do anything about Alvarez. All he can do is just say, hey, listen, I think you're hurt. We might place you on the IL and send that information up to David Stearns. But other than that, if these guys are healthy enough and they deem them healthy enough, they're going to have to go out there and produce. And you know what? Hats off, too, to the other side of the ball. The pitching has been holding it down, and they held it down relatively well in the Angels series. The offense just needs to snap out of it. But I am very confident in what the Mets have offensively, because they have shown us that they have the potential to go on hot streaks and pull this team out of the gutter, because they've done that. So I'm expecting that to start tonight.
Yeah, and you know what? The pitching has been holding us down, because you're absolutely right, right? I mean, the Angels are not a good team, but the pitching kept this offense in the game the entire game. They had opportunities. They didn't come through. 1st and 3rd, 1 out, Vientos, double play. Like, you can't do that. Like, anything but a double play in that spot. Look, I know it's not easy to hit a baseball. I get it. But, I mean, a sac fly, hit the ball somewhere to the right side, hit it hard somewhere. Like, it's just a lot of lazy at-bats in big spots. And, we can go up and down the lineup and you could say, oh, this guy didn't get it done. That guy didn't get it done. I thought, that Lindor, when he hit that home run that was foul, that who knows how that game would have turned out. If it was 3-3, maybe the Mets would have won the ball game. I felt at that moment when they called it foul, I'm like, I felt like they weren't coming back in that game. I don't know. I just had that feeling, even though, they surprised me before, but I just felt like it wasn't going to happen. But it is what it is, right? You're going to lose games. It is baseball. You're going to lose a series. Look, as bad as they've been offensively, they've still been winning series and winning games. Not at the clip they were in, June and July, or at least the most part of July. But they've still been winning. They've been finding ways to win. And, they've been playing with fire. But it has been the pitching that has been keeping this team in the games to come back late in the game or, keep them ahead in the game. That's what the pitching has been doing. The Quintanas, the Manayas, the Severinos, they'll have the hiccups every now and then, but they've been pretty damn solid. And, it's hard to kill this pitching staff. There's a lot of talk about Brandon Sproat, that this guy's probably going to make an appearance. And listen, it's late in the season at this point. Innings limits, pitch counts. I don't know how deep they're going to go with this kid. He's probably a Tommy John waiting to happen as hard as he throws, because I don't think he had one in his career just yet. So I don't know what they're going to do with him. They just promoted him to AAA. Maybe that is an option that they're thinking about, in a Peterson spot or something like that. I know I'm thinking outside the box here, but the pitching has been pretty good. And we should be winning more games.
Let's give David Peterson some credit too, Rob. This man, David Peterson, has been pitching a pretty damn good season so far. I don't really have like all the world of confidence in David Peterson, but if you look at his numbers and the starts that he's putting together, you can toss him right in that conversation along with Quintana and Luis Severino, because he has been performing pretty relatively well in terms of what we can expect out of him as a starting pitcher 4 or 5. So I just wanted to toss that in there because he also had a pretty decent start. And that's what also led up to the decision making of keeping Huascar Brazoban. And I know that this is a huge conversation of topic about the Brazoban situation, who, by the way, has not lost my confidence. I am still confident in Brazoban, and I will continue to support him in high leverage situations. But the thing about it is that I'm curious to see what your side of thinking is with that situation, because Mendoza, this is my personal opinion, Mendoza went out there in the post game and said that this was Brazoban's inning to lose. And he was not thinking about taking Brazoban out until Kevin Pillar's name came up in that order, right? Because it was Neto, then it was Ohapi, and then, or Ohap, however you say it, and then it was Pillar. He said until it got to Pillar, he was going to stick with Brazoban, if I'm not mistaken. But when the SNY camera panned to the dugout and they showed Mendoza and Hefner talking, every fiber of my opinion of Carlos Mendoza's existence wanted to go out there and pull Huascar Brazoban until Jeremy Hefner looked over, put his little notepad up to his mouth, whispered something in Carlos Mendoza's ear, and they ended up sticking with Brazoban, and then he gave up the go-ahead home run to Neto. So I'm very curious about how that decision-making, like, what do you think of it, especially only taking David Peterson out at only 82 pitches? I know we talked about it a little bit in the chat, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, you see, I wasn't mad about it because, look, Brazoban is going to be a big part of this bullpen in crucial innings, crucial games. He's going to be in high leverage situations. I have no problem for a guy you just got where you got to find his limit, because I don't care how much you know about the guy until he's on your team and you're using him and you see him, with your own eyes. I think it was a spot where it is like, all right, we're testing this kid. We're testing him. Why not? Like, I know people like, oh, they misused Budo the game before, and when it was 5-1. Yeah, I understand that, but Budo is still on, and I said this in a group chat. Budo is still on a schedule. He is still on a schedule just in case he is needed to go back into a rotation for an injury or somebody's not performing well. Jose Butto, for everybody who's complaining about Jose Butto and when he's being used, he's on a schedule for a reason. Everybody who wanted Jose Butto in the rotation, you're going to get this rest of the schedule for Butto exactly how you're going to have it planned out. So it doesn't matter of the situation most of the time. It's going to matter of what's his schedule going to be and how many pitches they want him to throw to keep him on a regimen just in case he needs to go into the rotation. For everybody in the chat that's talking about misusing Jose Butto, it's not misusing Jose Butto. They've told you this. I'm sorry I went off course a little bit, Chris, but I saw the chat talking about Butto. But that's the reason why. This is a plan that Mendoza told you about, that they're having Butto on a schedule, on a plan, just in case he needs to go back into the rotation for whatever reason. So with Brazoban, sorry I went off course. I just got a little annoyed with that the whole Butto thing when people don't want to listen to their manager. The manager told you this. Brazoban is new to this team. We all know that, right? Mendoza just had him for what? Not even a few days. He was trying to see how far he can use him. I know you're trying to win games, but Brazoban is going to be a big part of this team trying to win games. You can't just take him out when things get a little tough and waste another bullpen arm. What if Brazoban would have got out of it? Mendoza would have looked like a genius, right? He left the ball over the plate. The guy hit it. It's baseball. We all know this. We kill the manager after the fact, right? I always talk about this in the group chat all the time, especially with Hayden. Monday morning quarterbacking does not work in baseball. You can't complain about the result or the pitcher or the manager making the decision after the result because you look like a fool, right? You could be mad like, damn, maybe he should have done something different, but don't make it seem like it's Mendoza's fault right away when he had a guy in there who he hasn't really seen enough of face to face. He saw him on the Marlins, but guess what? Brazoban has been one of the Marlins' best pitcher other than Tanner Scott and Puck. So he's trusting that guy who Stearns got, who was one of the better arms that the Mets got at this deadline. You got to take a chance with him. Like, if you don't know what he has, then when are you ever going to use him? And when are you going to trust him with men on base? Because he's going to come on in games with either men on base or when he gets a little bit in a pickle, he's going to be used and he's going to be left out there, right? I hear complaints all the time, Chris, with people saying, oh, they should have kept this pitcher in there. Why take him out with 2 outs? Now people want Brazoban to get taken out with a couple of outs and people on base. Like, you can't win. And when you Monday morning quarterback after the result and then complain about the pitcher and the manager's decision, it's kind of silly. Because it doesn't work like that.
So for me in that situation, and I'm sorry to bring this up because, like I said, I know Mets fans are trying to forget about the last 2 nights, but it's important to talk about, really, especially with the new personnel that we have, right? We've seen very good flashes. And by the way, I haven't stated anything about this MLB trade deadline at all because I've been out on travel, so I apologize. But I absolutely love the personnel that David Stearns went out there and brought. Like, Brazoban is a great talent. Like Ant saying in the chat, he got the first 2 strikeouts with ease. He was 97 to 98 miles per hour on the gun. The off speed was working as well. And then he fell into a little bit of an unfortunate circumstance, giving up a single and then a couple of walks. On the flip side of the coin, like I said, I will go on record. What we saw out of Brazoban is not going to alter my view of him. Like, I trust that guy 100% because that guy brings electricity, and I can count on electricity late in ball games, especially in crucial situations. What I will say is I might be that type of guy to look back and say, listen, he might have looked a little bit aghast when he hit 30 pitches, right? But I also do agree with you. You need to see what you got out of your guys, especially in that situation. Now, like I said, it's easier said than done, especially when you're looking back in hindsight. But with Mendoza's decision, the answer that he gave was completely satisfactory to me in that was his inning until Kevin Pillar's name came up on the scorecard, and then he was going to make the switch. Would I have liked to see Stanek in the game before Neto hit the home run? Yes, but I can't confidently say that in that situation, right? He trusted his gut, and we've praised Mendoza countless of times for trusting his gut. Just recently, right, a couple weeks ago, trusting Luis Severino to make that final push and get the extra out, and we praised him for it. So if he chose to do the same thing with Brazoban and it didn't work out, then you like the process, you just don't like the result. That's my view of it.
Well, Chris, let me ask you: if he would have brought in Stanek and Stanek would have gave up the home run, people would have bitched that Stanek was putting the game in Brosman. Let him finish the inning. We were on shows all the time. Why didn't they let him finish the inning? And people were saying he might have been a little bit fatigued. He got the first 2 outs with ease. He just lost the plate. I don't know if that's fatigue or it's just losing the plate. He has a tendency of doing that. So you could have brought in Stanek. I wouldn't have been against it, but this is Mendoza and his gut feeling keeping the guy in there. Again, this is going to be another situation late, maybe 10 games from now when Brosman might be in the same spot. But maybe the matchup, and Mendoza said it. That's why when Chris said it's satisfactory, his answer is because of the fact that he liked the matchups until he got to Pilar. There's nothing wrong with that. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean the plan was just wrong. He left the ball over the plate, which any guy you would have brought in could have done that. Was Stanek would have got him out? Sure, maybe he would have. But if he would have gave the home run, we would have been talking about, and people in the chat would have said Brosman should have still been in the ball game, and people would have brought up the 2 easy outs he got prior to walking the 2 batters. It's baseball, guys. We see this all the time.
I mean, apparently Easy doesn't agree with us that he got the first 2 outs with ease because he almost let up a home run, but he did end up striking the first 2 guys out. So I'm not really sure what the consensus is there. If we're talking almost, then sure. But I mean, we're not talking almost. We're talking about what actually happened, and he got the first 2 strikeouts in that inning.
Yeah,
so I don't.
He got it done. He got it done, and like the fatigue factor makes actually no sense. He just lost the plate a little bit, which we see pitchers do all the time, especially bullpen arms. So like it's not a. Again, Chris, I'm sorry.
No. But my thing was the only reason why I brought this situation up, and I know we're going on a rant, and I appreciate you, Christopher. Thank you. It's great to be back here with you guys. I appreciate it. I definitely miss talking and chopping it up with you all about some Mets baseball. But did you see that camera angle though of Mendoza at the step at the railing, and then he was talking with Hefner? And it just looked like to me in Mendoza's body language that he wanted to go out there and get Brazoban and put Stanek in the game. But then when Jeremy Hefner turned and said something, he refrained, and that's when we got the home run. I don't know if I was crazy watching that in real time. Like I said, I haven't talked about it. I haven't been on a podcast in a couple of weeks here, but like I saw that and I was like, damn. Me as a fan, I have to wonder if what Hefner said to him push the extra sort of like edge in his mindset and decision making to say, all right, I'm going to trust my pitching coach here and not go get Brazoban. But like I said, the process is good either way. Like you said, you got to see what you got. And we've praised the manager countless of times for using his gut and making these decisions. And if we go back on that right now, just because the result wasn't what we wanted in the end, looking back in hindsight, then we would be called hypocrites. That's what we would be. So no, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because, like, look, this is the long rant when it comes to a pitch and move or leaving a pitcher in there, but it's going to happen again. Like, we know this. Like, maybe Mendoza had that little itch saying, all right, I'm going to get him out of there. And maybe Hefner did change his mind. Maybe Hefner was like, hey, listen, we talked about this. This was our plan going into this inning. Let's stick with it. Now, who knows? Right? Mendoza's not going to throw Hefner under the bus like that. We know that. But, you have a pitching coach for a reason. As much as we dislike Hefner, the Mets think highly of him. Mendoza thinks highly of him. Baseball thinks highly of him. Just because us fool fans think that Hefner's a freaking idiot doesn't mean they don't think so. Because all of baseball, it seemed, when people were like, oh, if Hefner gets fired from the Mets, he's going to get picked up right away. Why? But this is why you have a pitching coach, right? If you got a plan, no matter if it's baseball or life, you're going to go by that plan. And again, it looked like Mendoza was ready to come out and bring out Stanek. But again, Hefner was like, hey, we talked about this. We had our plan. And Mendoza was like, yeah, okay. So let's just go at it. And look, again, everybody's like, oh, we had 30 pitches, Brazoban. Wonderful. Have you seen how many pitches he'd thrown in out-ins for the Marlins? It was at least that a lot of the time. He pitched an inning in the third, inning 2/3. He's done that a lot with the Marlins. So anybody, again, just because you don't see this guy, you only see him, oh my God, 30 pitches. This is not, Ottavino here. This is not Diekman. This is not guys that don't throw 30 pitches in a bullpen. Brazaban has been used to throwing a lot of pitches in innings. That's another reason why they got him. He's actually a security blanket just in case Jose Butto goes into the rotation for whatever reason. Brazaban is a guy that can go multiple innings. He throws 25 to 30 pitches almost all the time at the Marlins. I went to go check this. I was curious about it because I was a little confused. Like, damn, 30 pitches. And then I go back, 83. Was it Baseball Savant? I forgot what website it was. It was around 83 or 84% of his outings are around 24 to 29 pitches. All right. He had a couple of ones of like 4 or 5 games where he went to 30 to 36 pitches. So he's done this a lot. So fatigue, maybe he was, right? We're not there to ask him. But he's done this before. Just because we haven't seen it, and that's the other thing, right? We don't watch the Marlins on a daily basis. We don't know how many pitches he throws. I didn't know until I looked it up. You guys can look it up. 30 pitches is, crazy to us, but we have multiple pitches in our bullpen that could do it, and Brazaban is one of them. So why not use it? It just didn't work out. Next time it might. So to kind of put this in a bubble here, yeah, maybe he should have took him out, but I don't think it was fatigue. I just think it was a bad pitch, and that's it. He gave up the home run. You tip your cap and go about your business. But I tell you right now, Brazaban's going to be in important spots. For everybody who doesn't want Brazaban in there anymore, you're probably going to see him now. You're probably going to see him today. Who knows?
Popular saying here, I believe Mr. Kanye West has said this. I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll never know what would have happened, right? You know what I mean? Like, I guess we'll never know. That this is baseball, and you know what? I guess we'll never know if Jeremy Hefner was the one that made a comment to make Mendoza, stick with Brazaban in that situation. Mendoza's not going to go out there in the postgame and out his pitching coach. He's just simply not going to do that. He's not built like that. But you know what? To sort of push beyond this rant, right? Because we're looking at the Cardinals series here. We got some good news here coming from the Mets bullpen, right? In terms of the reinforcements that could be on their way back. Now, I know Reed Garrett has had a couple of hiccups here in some of his rehab starts, but it's good that he's making those rehab starts. Same thing with Sean Reed-Foley. Positive updates on Daniel Nunez as well. So we could be looking at a situation where Jose Butto could be utilized in a different capacity. Now, like I said, I like Jose Butto as a 2 to 3 inning guy out of the bullpen. Yep. So if they continue with that route, that's perfectly fine with me. Maybe you find a couple DFA candidates, just like they did with Jake Diekman around this bullpen, or a couple of send-downs, but the reinforcements are on their way. But what is ahead of us is tonight in just about an hour and 10 minutes, where the Mets face off against the St. Louis Cardinals. This is a nightly effort that's going to need to be made by the New York Mets, the team that's right in front of them. This is a 10-game road stretch, right? We all know the Mets typically, I don't want to put this as a blanket statement, but they do play down to their competition at times. That's a very well-known fact. And I'm not saying the Cardinals are a bad team. The Angels definitely are, and we saw how that worked out, right? This offense, because we just stated at the top of the podcast that the pitching really isn't the problem. Regardless of what happened with Brazaban, the pitching and the bullpen really hasn't been the problem. They held their own for the most part, right? And they've been holding their own for the most part. How is this offense going to come back strong? We have some lineup changes. Vientos is in the lineup. Pete Alonso, for the first time since September 2020, I almost said 2022. The first time since September 2020, he is hitting below 4th in the lineup. Now, it's not too far down there, but it's a change, right? It's a change that we haven't seen in 4 years. So the Mets are catching on to what's happening. They're not naive. They're making the proper adjustments. It's up to the players now to back those adjustments up, just like Francisco Lindor did when they moved him to the leadoff spot. He also had a very solid series, by the way, 4 hits on the series with an RBI in that Angels series. So, like I said, this offense they were the catalysts to the hot stretch that the Mets had to get themselves back into position in the wild card race. They were the catalysts, right? The pitching held their own, and they've been holding their own, but the offense were the catalysts. Now they have to retain that status especially tonight. Listen, Andre Palante, this guy has good stuff. That knuckle curveball, that sinker, those are tough pitches. And I'm very curious to see what this Mets lineup does tonight. I'm very, very curious. It's going to be a very tough challenge because guess what? Andre Palante has owned the New York Mets over the last couple of years. I get it as a reliever, it's a small sample size, but he has. He's got a very weird arm action. He points his glove pretty much up to the sky. And if he comes from a weird angle in his arm motion, this is going to be a very tough situation and a very tough game for the Mets. I'm really hoping for the best. That's all we can do, though, Rob. That's all we can do is just hope.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't even know. Like this 1-game series is so odd. You know, the Mets are traveling, and you know, I think somebody did it a little bit of a how many miles the Mets are traveling over this stretch of games, and it's like 8,000 miles or some nonsense like that. So look, they're going to be a tired team. They're going to be, you know, this stupid 1-game series makeup. I think baseball could have found an easier way to do this while they were in the Midwest.
Absolutely.
Like they go to Chicago at the end of the month. They couldn't find anything. It's just odd to me. But again, that's just excuses. They got to get it done. You know, is this team tired from fighting back into relevancy again? And they're just tired? I hope not. You know, you got 50, you know, just a little above 50 games to go here, you know, and you're right in the mix. You know, your roster is your roster. You know, we all getting reinforcements, which is going to help this bullpen. We'll see how it goes, but it does start tonight. You know, I do like the fact that Pete Alonso was out of the 4 spot, the 2-3-4 spot. I said it for a couple of weeks now. He needed to get out of those spots. Take the pressure off of him. You got Iglesias behind him, who's a pain in the ass, and you got McNeil behind him as well, which I like. So just get it done. Like, you know, there's no more excuses for these guys anymore. I don't want to hear people say, oh, look what he does here. Look what he – no, I'm sorry. Pete Alonso's worst stats of his career are this year. Runners in scoring position, 198. That's embarrassing. That means he doesn't even hit home runs with men on base. He is another one of these guys that hit solo home runs, and when runners are on base, he folds under the pressure. This is a huge problem I've talked about for years. Nobody wanted to bring it up. All of a sudden, Chris, the media starts bringing it up now and showing the stats on the screen. Imagine that when my stupid ass has been getting killed for months and more than that. And I don't want to kill him because I know he's important to this team because he can carry a team for 3 weeks. We haven't seen it. He might have carried a team for a day or two, but not for a couple of weeks like many of our main guys already has. This lineup needs to step up. Me and Chris talked about how important this pitching has been, and they've held it down. They gave the offense a chance to win ball games, and they failed over the last couple of weeks. They've been winning games. I'm not even sure how, right? Maybe clutch hitting, a couple of clutch hits here and there, a couple of good pitching performances, and you've been winning games. This offense needs to step up and put a 10 spot up. How about helping the pitching? Every time these pitchers, we talk about the pitchers. Oh, Brazaban. Oh, Ottavino. Oh, this guy. They're always pitching in high leverage situations because the offense don't run away with games. They keep the teams in the games the entire game. So every pitcher has to come in a higher leverage situation. The offense needs to take control over a game. How about saving our bullpen? How about putting up a 10 spot? So the pitcher who comes in, we don't have to worry about him walking the ballpark and, you know, giving up big home runs. It seems like every game there's a reliever that's coming into a high leverage situation. That's not the pitcher's fault. That is the offense fault. They got to start putting games away early, right? When they put a couple of runs up, they'll have 3 runs in the 3rd inning, and then they won't score from the 4th through the 8th inning, and then we wonder why teams come back on us. The offense has a lot of dry spots in middle of games. If they don't score early, they might score in the middle of games. That's been their worst offensive production from the 4th inning to the 7th inning. The 1st inning, the 2nd inning, and 3rd inning has been pretty good. The 8th and 9th has been really good, but in between the game, they go lifeless. And I don't know what it is. with tons of people on base. When you leave 9, 10, 11 men on base a game, there's something wrong. And that's why I think they changed the lineup, Chris. They had to do something. You can't replace the guys. You can't trade for anybody. There isn't anybody on the bench that can really replace these guys. So what is the next best thing? We're moving these guys in the lineup, and we're just hoping it works. Because if it doesn't, I don't know what this team's going to do, because they will be in trouble very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of, the Mets and where they rank in all of the individual statistics around the league for this entire season, the inconsistencies are something that you just can't look past, right? And it's kind of a miracle that they're in this situation right now, 5 games over 500. But it could also snap out. They could snap out of it with a snap of a finger, no pun intended. I mean, they really could. So I mean, it just really is what version of this Mets offense we're going to get over stretches of a time during a season. So I'd like to see more consistency, and something that I've always preached so far this season has been productive outs. I mean, first and third, right? All these double plays or strikeouts that we're seeing with first and third. How about you just lift the damn ball and get me a sac fly? Because I'll take the one run over no runs any day of the week. I'm pretty sure anybody would. And those runs would go a long way in terms of the insurance, in terms of mitigating any sort of high leverage situation that your relievers or your starters in the back end of the game are going to have to sort of be put into. Like, if you continue to just give me sac flies at the end of the day, I'll take it. I don't even care. Like, at this point, but the way things have been going, give me the sac fly. You got to cash in, because 6 of 35 with runners in scoring position against the Los Angeles Angels is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It really is. So something needs to change. And the thing is that we're not giving them any excuses. I'm not going to sit here and give Pete Alonso an excuse. I'm not going to give Mark Vientos grounding into a double play with as good as he's been, right, this season an excuse. Like, all of these guys are held to the same standard when you're in this lineup. That's 100% a fact. But like I said, the Mets have shown in 2024 that they can turn it around. And so for everybody that's dooming and glooming, I hear you. I get it. The last 2.5 weeks have been ugly. They've been kind of just hanging afloat there. But listen, they've proven that they can do it. Now it's time for them to just do it again. And that's what we're going to sit here and potentially talk about later tonight if we go live for the post game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to realize that, this team has done it before this year, right? When you thought they were done and out, they proved us wrong. When they lost a couple of games in a row, right? They had that 3 games in a row losses stretch, and they came back and won a couple of games in a row. So they've been fighting back here. And, I'm not down on this team. Look, they're going to go through a spell. It happens. We all know baseball is you fail more than you succeed, right? They're going to go through a cold streak. At some point, they're going to wake up. You just hope that it's not too late. That's where I think it is right now. So, Chris, when it comes to this game today, obviously you already talked about Palante dominating the Mets. He really done well against them, even if it is in a relief role. What do the Mets have to do against Palante? I don't think his pitch count is going to be very high. Maybe you want to get him out of the game as quickly as possible. But what are your thoughts on what this lineup has to do to, get some offensive production going here and give Manaea a chance?
Hit the baseball. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, the formula is pretty simple, and you know what I always preach, and I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but I always preach, if you get a strike early in the count, rather than seeing the knuckle curve or whatever else the Palante special is in terms of the off-speed pitches, make sure you attack him early. That doesn't quite feed into the narrative of working counts and getting him out, especially if his pitch count's going to be low. I'm not sure what his pitch count's going to be if he's at one. I don't know. I mean, he's had a couple starts under his belt so far this season. I think he got inserted into that rotation a couple of months ago, if I'm not mistaken. But if you're a Cardinals fan on here, you could definitely fact check me. But I mean, seriously, get runners on base. That's the first step. I don't care how you do it. You can reach by air at this point. That's perfectly fine. Rather see you drive the ball in the gap. But when you get runners in scoring possession, I don't care what you do. Just hit the ball into the damn air. I'm sick of seeing ground balls to the shortstop for double plays or ground ball to the third baseman for double plays. And honestly, like I said, I really don't know. Like the sinker slider. If you look at Pete Alonso and what his kryptonite has been so far this season, it's that slider down and out, right? And I'm not saying the sinker mimics that to a T, but the sinker also probably has been giving the Mets. I haven't looked at the exact averages of it, but it's probably given the Mets some problems too. So the movement is going to be there today from Palante. And I wish I was confident in the Mets to sort of see that and be okay with that and realize that, but I don't know if I am. So recognizing the pitch out of Palante's hand is probably the first step because it's going to have movement regardless of what pitch he throws. And that's something that the Mets really, over the last 2.5 weeks, they haven't done well at, right? If you face an opposing pitcher that has a lot of movement, which most pitchers in today's MLB more often than not have, then you're in a world of trouble, especially if you're down 1-2-0-2, right?
Yeah.
My thing is that if you're the New York Mets, unless you're Jeff McNeil, who can just pull a double over the bag with a shitty swing, right? Unless you're Jeff McNeil, you can't go down 0-2. Do not get yourself in a pitcher's count because it's been bad news. Change the game plan up. Change the approach up, especially Pete Alonso. So I'm hoping that Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes and their two genius philosophies combined together, because that's what it's been seeming like we've been getting so far this season, is these two guys just coming together with different philosophies and different approaches. I don't know if you all know, Chavez loves the contact, Jeremy Barnes loves the power, and together, hopefully they create a middle ground. We just want to see that middle ground happen more often than not. And that's my key to tonight's game. And it's really simple, nothing groundbreaking. But at the end of the day, I think any advice that this Mets lineup could take, they should definitely listen to at this point.
Yeah, and it seems a bit obvious. I don't know. Maybe it's. I think it's obvious to most people. They've been taking a lot of fastballs right down the middle. Like that just shows you that they're guessing too much. They're not going at the plate and seeing the ball and hitting the ball, and that's a huge problem, especially with runners on. Like, go after the fastball. We know all these damn pitches have nasty sliders, big curveballs. Everybody got amazing breaks and all these different type of pitches. The split, what is the sport ball? Everything, every freaking type of the sweeper. It's not a slider anymore; it's a sweeper. They got changeups that start at your head and drop down to your ankles. Like, it's insane. Like, I don't want this. I never understand. Like, hitting is hard. We understand that. But they make it so complicated. Like, how about this? Look for a fastball and adjust to breaking stuff and off-speed pitches. I've learned that. I think if you played baseball, that's like baseball 101, hitting 101. Look for fastball, adjust to breaking balls and off-speed pitches. That is just baseball hitting 101. I don't see why it's so hard to do that. And these guys are professional athletes that should know that. Like, I understand when you're struggling, you're starting to guess a little bit more. But when you continue to swing at the same pitch, it makes me feel like you're not practicing enough or not realizing your flaw. Like, and this goes not just for Pete Alonso, but for other guys. Like JD Martinez over his last couple of weeks, even though he hit the grand slam, he's been taking a lot of fastballs right down the middle. That's a guy that takes that ball to right field, right? And Pete Alonso, when he's on, takes that ball to right field. And, if you throw a fastball on the outside corner, Pete Alonso's not swinging at it. And then he'll look at it, and then the slider comes looking like it's going to be on the outside corner and drops into the left-handed batter's box, and he swings at it. Like, you got to be more selective here. Stop guessing at pitches and go after it. Be aggressive at the plate. And when you're in situations like Vientos was yesterday, first and third, 1 out, stop trying to do too much. The guy was trying to swing for the fences, and then when he got into a pitcher's count, you could see that he tried to, I wouldn't say try to hit a home run, but he looked like he was trying to hit a 500-foot shot. Like, they're trying to do too much. You got to slow your mind down. You got to go after the fastball and stop letting those fastballs go right over the plate. They're giving you balls right down the middle. Don't wait until you get into a pitcher's count and think you're going to get the pitch you're going to hit. It's probably not going to happen. So Chris is right. Hit the ball. I mean, that's a crazy concept. It's very simple for a team that was one of the best offensive teams in baseball for 2 months. And they're looking like they're lost at the plate and scared to bat with runners in scoring position. Get it done today. The Cardinals are right on your ass. Win today and head to Colorado and kick their ass. How about that? How about a little conference for our fucking team? because they're pissing me off. They're really pissing me off because I know they're better than this. And I think some of us, or most of us, think they're better than this. The pitching has been holding it down. The offense needs to step up and do their job. I don't have anything else to say. I think that's kind of the pregame right there. Get the job done. That's the motto. Get the job done.
Bottom line. And Ant said it earlier on in the chat too. They have an opportunity to take, I believe, the season series from the Cardinals, right? If I'm not mistaken. So
yeah.
This could be a perfect opportunity in case any tiebreaker situations, any funny business happens later on in the season, right? And like I said, the bottom line is that we can sit back and look at these last 2 games against the Angels. We can take a handful of games throughout the season and how close the Mets were to winning some, and they can make all the difference in the world. So let's try to stop that bleeding and let's take advantage of opportunities when they present themselves. And tonight is a fantastic opportunity against a team that is directly behind you and wants to beat your ass in the St. Louis Cardinals. So let's not make that happen. I understand it. They have, like you said, like this is the last part that I want to say. We understand everything. And Brandon Nimmo even said this in his interview as well. He's like, no, it's not ideal that we're traveling so much right now. It's not ideal, but we can't sit there and make excuses because that's what the MLB scheduling team has set forth for us, and we're just going to have to play through it. And that's exactly what everybody's mindset should be, right? From the fans to the front office to the players. There's no excuses, right? There's no excuses. David Stearns, did the Mets go out there and get you those top tier A guys through and through the board? No. Listen, at the end of the day, things happen. Moves happen. They didn't want to mortgage the future. I completely understand it, but they got guys in the door that should make this team. Like, if the Mets do not make the playoffs with this roster, it would be a disappointment because this is a playoff roster, especially with who the Mets got at the deadline. I'm sorry. You can say it isn't because they're losing ball games, but with what the Mets have right now, it would be a damn shame if they missed the playoffs. Especially by a couple of games when we just lost a Angels series that should not have been a loss. So let's go out there. Let's make a push. And these are the types of conversations that Rob and I are going to be having every single stream until the very end, as long as the Mets maintain their status in this race. You're going to hear the same thing because you know what? It's crunch time. There's no excuses to be made. Go out there and win a damn ball game.
Yep, and I agree with that. I think it's more than enough what Stearns did at the deadline, and it's well said, Chris. And you know what? We're going to finish it with that because that was well said. So, guys, we appreciate you guys tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show. In less than an hour, the Mets play one game against the Cardinals. Beat them. Get 2.5 games up on the Cardinals and fight back into the wild card with the Padres, the Braves, and the Diamondbacks. This team is good enough. This team is a playoff team. Make it happen over the next 50-plus games. And let's see where they are. And it starts in an hour against the Cardinals. So, Chris, it's always a pleasure doing a pregame with you. Most likely, we'll do a postgame. I'm going to set it up. I'll let you know if I'm going to be there or not. But I think I will be because I think we're going to get a win today, and I'm going to love to talk about it. So, with that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show. Everybody, have a good night. Enjoy the game. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time, guys. Have a good night.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really socking the ball.